Listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dursey-Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio chapter of APA and Chair of the New Urbanism Division, and I'm your webcast moderator. Today is Friday, December 15th, and we will hear the presentation, Women in Planning, Guiding Emerging Professionals. For technical help during today's webcast, you can type your questions in the chat box found in the webcast toolbar to the right of your screen, or you can call that 1-800 number shown in bold. And for your content questions related to the presentation, you can type those in the questions box, which is also, again, located in the webinar toolbar, and we'll answer those at the end of the presentation during Q&A. On your screen is a list of the sponsoring chapters and divisions for 2017. Thanks to all the participating sponsors for making these webcasts possible and free to their members. If you're looking down the list and you don't see your chapter or your division listed, we just ask that you reach out to them and say, hey, you should join us. Today's webcast, in particular, is sponsored by the Women and Planning Division. You can learn about them and all the divisions at planning.org/divisions. And coming up on your screen is a list of our upcoming webcasts for 2018. Can you believe it? Today is our last webcast for 2017. None of these webcasts are yet posted to our webpage, but they will be by the end of the day. So keep an eye out for those. To log your CM credits for attending today's webcast, head over to planning.org and log into your MyAPA account. Then up at the top, under the CM log, you can search for your CM activities either by the title of today's webcast or the event number, both of which can be found on our webcast webpage, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. And this webcast has been approved for 1.5 CM credits for live viewing only. We do have some recorded webcasts available for distance education. Just head over to our webcast webpage again, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast, and you can check those out. And like us on Facebook, Planning Webcast Series, to receive up-to-date information on our sessions. And we are recording today's webcast. It will be available on our YouTube channel at the end of the session. Just head over to YouTube and search Planning Webcast. And we'll also have a PDF available up on our webpage, again, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. So I'm going to turn it now over to Corinne Wendell, and I'm going to introduce her, and then she's going to kind of introduce everyone else and kind of get us started. I'm going to switch our screens, though. So Corinne Wendell is a practicing planner with over 14 years of local government experience providing planning, architectural, and research services. Corinne is a senior planner and sector representative for the Metropolitan Council within the Twin Cities region. She received a Master's of City and Regional Planning and a Bachelor of Science in Architecture from The Ohio State University. Corinne serves on the executive board of the American Planning Association Women in Planning Division as the director of programs, the Planners Day and School Coordinator, and Conference Program Co-Chair for the Minnesota chapter of the American Planning Association, and is the founder and executive director of Youth Engagement Planning nonprofit organization. She has a great interest in enhancing the quality of life for all people, as well as a strong focus and passion for planning. So now I'm just kind of looking up, and we're looking at your email. So everyone sees your email.
Did I just unshare
the presentation?
I have to open the presentation.
I'm going to take it back for a second until you can get the presentation up.
Right, I didn't know I had to open, so I have to open it.
And just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, almost. Okay, what?
We're okay, Christine.
All right, I'm going to change it back to you again. And Corinne, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Okay. Thank you all for attending today. We are so excited to have you all on the line for this webinar. What we really
Sorry, I
want to
interrupt you again. I see you must have 2 monitors.
Yep.
Can you go up to the top and hit display settings and then hit duplicate slideshow or swap presenter view, either one, it doesn't matter. Sorry, everybody. We did practice, I promise. And then, perfect. Okay, take it away. Last time.
All right, wonderful. Yes, well, thank you all for coming. You know, this webinar really came out of all of the information and all of the questions and answers that we received over the summer. We put it out to our membership, so we're about 1,000 strong with the Women in Planning Division, and we wanted to ask you all what you would like to know, where you are in your careers, and what questions you might have as you are entering the profession, if you're just about to graduate, if you are in that 0 to 5 years of experience. We received a lot of questions for us to put on a webinar that really gets through a lot of this information and to really tap into some of the professionals, whether we have a new professional, mid-professional, and a seasoned professional, and to give you some answers to a lot of these questions that we received through our membership. So this webinar today is going to be talking about women who are entering the planning profession, and how the seasoned professionals and mid-professionals can be welcoming them through that open door. So that door is being opened, and those professionals are reaching back and asking the emerging professionals to come with us, come and have a great planning career, ask us for a mentorship opportunity, and to also kind of give you some guidance on what that actually looks like as you get further into your career. So today we have a panel of some top female professionals. We have 3 different panelists that I'm going to introduce. So the first we have is Janae Prince. So Janae is the Community Development Director for the City of Fayetteville down in Georgia. And I say down in Georgia because we're here in Minnesota. And so that is a suburb of Atlanta. And she's been there quite some time, but she's been in the national consulting experience for 8 years and then also 15 years in public sector planning experience. She does have a Master's of City and Regional Planning from The Ohio State University. So we went through the same program. And then next we have Brianne Rothstein. So Brianne is a Senior Associate and Project Manager at WSB and Associates here in Minnesota. It's a design consulting firm headquartered here in Minneapolis. And she has 12 years of experience in the public and private sector, helping communities achieve their goals related to planning and development. She specializes in community engagement and collaboration with the development community to achieve those win-win solutions. She volunteers as past president of the Minnesota chapter of the American Planning Association, the vice chair of the Planning and Women Division, and she is on the executive committee of the Chapter President's Council. She's very passionate about giving back to her communities and her profession. And last but not least, we have Olivia Darrow-Hovland. She is a community planning intern here at WSB, so she works in Brianne's department. She has a master, or she is a master's student at the University of Minnesota. She's pursuing a dual degree in urban and regional planning and public health. And her work is focused on creating a built environment that makes the healthiest choice and the easiest choice. And she previously held internships with the City of St. Paul in their planning department and for a private consulting firm called Farr Associates in Chicago, Illinois. So we're going to get started. So this is really what our webinar is going to be focused on. We're going to go through a little bit about why we do this work. Why is the Women in Planning Division so passionate about making sure that women in planning succeed and they have great achievement? We're going to break this up into 4 different areas. We're going to be talking about into the workplace. What does our workplace look like at the moment? Then we're going to transition to job search and that first offer. Also, we're going to talk about, well, you have a job, so then now what? What happens next? And then we'll go into those next steps, talking about the mentorship and advancing your career, which is always very important. At the end of each of these areas, we're going to stop and ask questions. And these questions have come in through our membership, through Facebook, to ask our professionals what their experiences are. And so we'll pause and we'll have sort of this question and answer format. And we also have a couple of polling questions for you all who are on the line. So why do we do this work? So Women in Planning Division, we are, as I mentioned, we're about 1,000 plus strong of official division members. We have just under that on our Facebook membership. It has grown exponentially in the past couple years. Just a few years ago, in about 2013 when I joined, we had maybe 300 members, if that. So we have grown so much, and that really speaks to where we are in our sort of climate of planning and profession and where women are, and as they're advancing in their careers, I think it's very important that we all find kind of this coexistence with one another and find this mentorship and kind of collaborate with one another and really make sure that we are looking for opportunities not only for ourselves, but our fellow woman planner who may be next to us in the office. So as you can see, women do benefit from peer mentorship. They also are less likely to receive advice from their managers or senior leaders. On average, women are promoted at lower rates than men. And then also women across all races and ethnicities, they all do negotiate for raises. However, men really don't have to try as hard as women when they're looking for that raise or that promotion. And so it's really important that we focus on really leaning on one another and then also finding a support system and a network system so that we all can achieve and have great success in our careers. So this is just a picture I want to share of some women planners, myself included. We all went to the same planning program at Ohio State, and this is us last year, 10 years later at the national conference, all of which, all the women you see here are now either directors or in the highest position where they work. And so it's really important that we've kept this connection, that we have been able to collaborate with one another, we've been able to ask each other for advice, and it's really helped us in our careers to have that network and to have that bond remain with one another. And so really what the quote here says from Michelle Obama is that we need to have a focus and be intentional about looking back and reaching back to those female planners that are coming up through grad school, through that new position, and making sure that we provide that mentorship that we had received in our careers. So here we go. So we're going to go into the workplace. So we're going to look at kind of the snapshot of where we are right now. So as you can see, men and women, this is men and women in the corporate pipeline. As the importance of the position increases, the visibility of women in those positions are decreasing. So as you go along the line there, you can tell that as a new professional, it may appear to be equal. So in Olivia's position, it may appear to be equal. Maybe there's, 6 men and, 4 women out of 10 in any office. But then as you move through your career, those numbers begin to change. And we see the upset of that number as you get to that C-suite or that executive position. Then we're going to take a look at women across the U.S. in general. So this is a snapshot. So you see all women in various careers across America. So similarly here, when we're looking at the wages, so when it's starting out about 90 cents to a men's dollar early on, and then around 35, so around the age of 35, where we are in our mid-career, you start to see this greater divide. So this divide begins, and it begins to increase, and women are even falling further back as they get to age 65. So it actually, the slope becomes downward, which is really shocking and surprising. Then we're looking at women in planning. So these are women planners and their years of experience. So as you can see in the graph here, this is just through the APA salary survey, it really starts to taper off after that 15 to 19 years of experience. Whereas men stay consistent, and there are twice as many, if not more, the number of men from that 20 to 30 years of experience. So women just really start to fall off in terms of being even visible in the workplace after that 25-year plus, even 24-year plus mark. And so those mid-season planners, if they're staying in the workforce, you will hopefully see that number change over time. But currently, really to find a mentor is a little hard because there's just not that many women that are in that experience level. So we're seeing that. So we're going to stop here and just take a quick poll. We'd like to see who we have on the line. So we're going to take a poll, and it's going to pop up for you. And we're going to look at how many planners today are in the 0 to 5 years of experience, who is in the 5 to 15, and who's in the 15 to 30. And we're going to leave that poll open for about a minute or so you can make your selection. We would just like to see kind of who's here.
Okay. I'm looking now. We have about 60% of folks have voted. I'll give it another second, and then I'll close it and show the results.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it.
All right.
And then I'll share those results. So it looks like 24% 0 to 5 years, 32% 5 to 15, 44% 15 plus years.
Oh, this is great. Excellent. Thank you all for letting us know where you are in your career. This is really exciting. We just talked about the women who are in that 15 plus as they start to fall off the graph, and you all are here. So I'm so excited that you joined us today. This is wonderful. So this is why this webinar is so important. It's so important because we have young planners who are seeking for that mentorship, seeking for that connection with the seasoned and mid-career planners. And also, we'll talk about this later, the benefits of being a mentor and how that really can influence your career as you are getting to that 15 plus year in experience. So this is wonderful. All right, so we'll just briefly touch on this, then we'll get to some questions. So this is a viewpoint that's seen in young women today. This was shared through the McKinsey study. And so young women today, so they will aspire to and be vocal about wanting to be in those top positions, but they're still less confident that they can actually reach the top of their organization. So the confidence level is not there. They have a will and they aspire, but the confidence is not quite as strong. And then as young women are the most committed to gender diversity, we're seeing that young men are actually the least concerned or committed to gender diversity. And so I just wanted to ask Olivia just real quick. So in grad school, does this mentality seem to be true? Do you find this in your fellow grad school students?
I think that is true. I think that the young women that I am currently in class with do aspire to those top positions. But when you talk about a sort of lack of confidence that is possible, I think that is related to the graph that we saw in the last slide, because we are not seeing the women in the positions that we want to hold. And so there isn't that sort of visible, accessible example being shown to us readily.
Very good. That's excellent. That's a great point. So we're going to get into some other questions. So with Brianne and Janae and Olivia here as our panelists. So I guess we'll start with Brianne. So what were your first impressions of the planning profession in terms of women and finding opportunities for jobs and growth?
So my first impressions as a young planner were that everything was equal. I didn't personally feel like I had any lack of opportunity based on my gender. And I did see other young planners and mid-level planners in the organizations and the agencies that I was exposed to in mid-level positions. And I didn't feel that there were any lack of opportunities for growth. I graduated at a time where the market was at its peak for hiring planners, so there were tons of jobs. And so yeah, my first impressions were very positive.
Wonderful. So then we'll turn to Janae. So what did you like most about working in the private and public sector? You've worked in both now through many years in each. So Janae, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that in the private sector, you are removed from a lot of the not so fun stuff that happens in local government, like citizens coming to your office to complain about their next door neighbor. But you also get to feel like you're making a difference in one community. You're very committed to that community. So I guess I said that backwards. In the private sector, you're removed from the fun stuff, or removed from the not so fun stuff in the public sector, and you get to work on more challenging projects. But as a public sector planner, you're more committed to one community, and you can see the change. You can see the effects that your work is having on the community.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In that, Janae's been in both, and then Brianne's been in the private sector, but working for public or local governments through that work. And then myself, I've been only in the public sector. And so it's really interesting. And then Olivia is just starting out and then working in the private sector, but may have that shift at some point in her career also. But yeah, it's really interesting how it's different from one to the next. So we're going to get to the next question. Okay, so let's talk about work politics. So when you have work politics in the office. How do you handle that? Maybe we'll go back to Janae for that. So how have you in your career handled work politics? How can you be maybe a positive reinforcement through that as a woman in planning?
Well, now work politics are nothing compared to real politics that you deal with when you work for local government.
Right.
And suddenly it seems so much easier to be in the private sector because you're not dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the best thing that you can do as a preemptive measure when you start a new job is to try to create that connection with your coworkers as best you can right from the beginning by taking an interest in their personal lives and just spending the time to get to know them outside of work stuff.
That's very true. That's very true, to have that relationship with that connection in the office and then outside the office so that you know them as people. That's very true. So our next...
That way, when somebody is giving you a hard time at work, you maybe know what's going on in their personal life and are a little more understanding.
Oh, that's very true. Yes, you get that context. You know, what is actually going on? You know, why you know, did we have maybe a disagreement about something? It could definitely be personal and not professional at all. So we're going to turn to Olivia. So our next question, so we're going to talk about, so what are some of those lessons learned from being the only woman or the youngest person in a meeting? So right now, Olivia, as a grad student and having an internship, probably finds herself as the youngest person, as Brianne and I once did, as Janae once did. And so there's really some dynamic to that. So Olivia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm sort of in that place that Brianne described earlier with her first impression of the planning profession, where I have seen things be pretty equal and I'm feeling okay about the balance of women in planning, but I definitely feel more pressure being the youngest person in a room, and I sometimes feel that ageism more than I feel sexism, because there are a lot of people who have been in planning for years and years and years and are not as welcoming of younger voices. And I feel myself defecting at meetings more because of my age than any other reason. And that's a hard thing to combat. And it really, I think it depends on who you're working with and how they are helping to facilitate your interaction in your group or your meeting. But being the youngest person is definitely really hard.
Definitely. And so I just want to maybe counter that with Brianne's experience, you know, getting into management at a young age and being a younger voice. How have you seen maybe the transition of that? So you maybe used it to your advantage or been able to kind of power through that point.
Thanks for asking that. One of the roles that I see myself play at the company is the millennial voice. All of our leadership is older than me, and in their 40s. So we have a young leadership team, but young by regular, like outside corporate standards, right? So they're all in their mid to late 40s or early 50s. And there's a huge opportunity to present information about how, because 50% of our employees are millennials. And so there is a disconnect between our leadership and what our employees are saying and wanting and asking for. And so I feel like I'm the link between that. And so I'm very outspoken. I have to learn how to be more savvy and pick my battles. I'll say that's my weakness. but it's pretty hard to contain myself when the discussions are so what I feel as outdated discussions, and I feel like I offer some value to those discussions as a millennial.
Very true. Great response. And our last question for this section. So I think we will ask Janae a little bit about, In what you've seen as a seasoned professional, so how have you seen others either handle sexism or sexual harassment in the workplace? Of course, this is a very topical. I think women, we've all known this has been happening for 100 years, but apparently it's coming more to the light now because women are having a voice and speaking up. And so, Janae, how do you view that, and how can we take another positive role in ensuring that women have a great environment to work in?
Well, sexism is not generally in your face. It's stuff that's happening behind closed doors, you being denied an opportunity because you're a woman. It's hard to confront because it's not in your face. But sexual harassment is another story. You have to recognize it when it's happening. That behavior that's okay in a bar is not okay at work. I had a boss one time who refused to give me feedback on a report that I was writing. And I kept bugging him about it. And finally he said he would discuss it with me in the hot tub at my apartment complex. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that really happened. Okay, so I think that the best way to approach that sort of thing is with confidence. You have to be confident in that what is happening is not okay. And it's okay to say that. Now, I've had a lot less extreme examples than that happen over the course of my career. And I would say sometimes in a joking way, hey, did you know that could be considered sexual harassment? That's not allowed, right? Okay, good. And then just move on to the next thing. Kind of just poking at them a little bit, the way you might do with a kid brother or something. But if after reminding the offending party that what they're doing is not okay, you may have to go up the food chain with it to your boss or to HR. Be very careful with this. You need to document, you need to be prepared. The best thing to do is just head it off at the pass. Let them know it's not okay and tell them to stop. If they don't, say, gee, I wonder what our boss would think about this, or HR, or legal. That usually gets them to shut up.
If someone's talking, we can't hear you. Corinne, are you there?
I'm not talking. I'm done.
Oh, okay. I think we might be having some sound issues.
We might.
I'm not hearing anyone come in.
I'm not either.
Hold on. Hold tight, everyone. We'll see what we can figure out here. I'm going to try to contact them. If you guys can hear me, if you could hang up the phone or try calling, maybe try calling in on the telephone, because I think you're on a computer. So try calling in on a phone if you could. Hold tight, everybody. Sorry. Okay, it looks like they're trying to log back in or log in differently. I think there might be some internet issues going on.
Hey, Christine.
Hello.
Can you share my screen, please?
I'd be happy to. I'm so glad to hear your voice.
We're back.
I almost had a
friends.
panic moment, and I'm like, all right, what am I going to do now?
Oh my gosh.
All right, so I just gave you the controls.
I thought you all might want to hear some more sexual harassment stories from the 90s.
Well, at first I was thinking, like, was everyone really moved? They don't know what to say.
All right. Well, thanks, friends, for staying on the line. Can everyone see what I'm doing?
Yes, we can.
All right. All right, let's get back to work.
Woof. Okay.
All right. All right. So, oh my goodness, guess what? I went too far. Hold on. Wait. Okay. All right, guess what? Oh, how exciting. You get a job offer. This is so fun. So now that you've applied for jobs and you're wonderful and you get your first offer, then what happens? What can we see about this type of landscape as we get into kind of this job offer type of information? So we actually had a survey done for our Minnesota chapter of APA, and they really reached out to some of the young planners that are either grad students, kind of like Olivia's kind of area where she's about to apply for jobs. She's done some internships, and they found that 55% of the young planners applied for 5 or more jobs, and that 37% of the young planners applied for 10 or more. So that's, I mean, that's great news. So at least there's that many jobs to apply for, which is wonderful. And some of the areas that they looked at for searching for those jobs are places that you see in any state, no matter what state you're in. You're going to be looking at maybe a career center, maybe a professional listserv like APA or ASLA, whichever avenue you're in. Sometimes those overlap. You may see landscape jobs over in APA. You may see planning jobs over in the landscape profession. So they really do overlap sometimes, which is really cool if you have a dual degree or if you're coming from multiple areas of interest. You can really double up on some of those interests in your job search. Of course, LinkedIn, and then many states have different government links, so listservs that they have jobs. So here in Minnesota, it's called the League of Minnesota Cities, and that's something that's really helpful to students and people that are just applying. Or maybe you're going to look for something within that first 0 to 5 years. Maybe you would like something a little different. So then priorities. So we're looking at job preferences. So this is really important where the folks that were surveyed, they're really putting location as their number 1 priority when considering a job offer. So do they want to stay in a metropolitan area? Do they want to be in a rural setting? Do they want to move from their hometown across the US? Who knows? So, and then the second is the type of planning work. So that doesn't surprise me. That's something that if you're passionate about a certain type of planning work, you may choose that over the location. That may be more important to you and more important than salary. So location and type of planning work is more important than salary because you obviously want to be in a position and in a planning career that's really satisfying, that you feel passionate about, and that may trump getting a salary increase for that. So then some of the 5 influencing factors. So of course, word of mouth. So us telling each other about job opportunities is the number 1 way to get a job. Of course, your personal experience, who your employer may be, how responsive they may be in the application process. I will, from personal experience, and of course, Brianne and Janae know too, that in the public sector, when you're applying for a position, you may not get it for 6 to 8 months. And that is normal. I don't know why. It just takes that long sometimes. And Brianne, maybe
can I just interject one thing unrelated to that?
Yes.
When I look at these top 5 priorities, a manager is not on there. And I would say that is the number 1 top priority. And maybe young planners just don't even think of it. But your manager and whether they're going to mentor you or take time for you or, that is a very important aspect was for me and has served me well when I use that as a top consideration for taking the job.
Yeah, very true. That's very interesting. If we would have this survey done from, this one's from those in the beginning of their careers. If we have this for mid and seasoned, they actually might change based on where they are in their career. Very true. So then we did ourselves survey some hiring managers, and we're looking at kind of what are the top characteristics of a great new hire. So, sorry, friends. Sorry, hold on, I'm going back. So if we were to look at different hiring managers and what they're looking for, so if you have a really great employee that's coming on, what are some of those characteristics that they saw while they were interviewing? Maybe one interview, maybe a second interview may have been that 6 to 8 month process for somebody. So some of the top areas, so willingness to do a variety of work. There's going to be some positions where, they may want you to do permitting, even fence permitting. They may want you to do conditional use permits, working the counter, answering the phones. I don't know, maybe a little code enforcement. There may be some other things that may just trickle in there that they didn't know they needed. Oh, website design. Like there might be some things that you really didn't know that they needed. Oh, how fun. So if you have that willingness, you know that you can really further your career and be that person, a go-to person. You can provide that value that they didn't know they needed, which is number one. So of course, love for planning, passion for planning. So obviously, if you're in this profession, you have one of those. You have a love for what you do, you have a passion, maybe you have sort of this outline of what you would like your career to look like. Share that with your hiring manager so that they know how far you want to go in your career, that you want to be here, or you want to be around 20, 30 years from now, making an impact. Of course, you want to show that you're smart, you have intellectual curiosity. When they ask you that question, kind of what is your a thing that you may need to work on. So you may answer how you handle mistakes. That tells a lot about you as a person. You want to be positive, optimistic. You want to be there. So employers, that's their worst nightmare, is that you come to work and that you are dreary and that you don't like what you're doing. That's a nightmare. We want to see that you're there, you're ready to work, and you're really excited about the work that's being given to you. And then, that goes along with professional maturity, being able to roll with stuff that happens. So that's really important. So we're going to look at some wages here. So this is from the APA salary survey. Actually, Brianne gave a presentation at National back in the spring that focused on these outcomes. And so we're looking at 2006 and 2016, so a 10-year span. So what we're seeing here is the graphs kind of look the same, only women are making a little bit more money now. Well, good, because it's 10 years later. So hopefully they're making more money. But the balance between those years of experience are not very the improvement isn't really seen. So hopefully through women connecting with other women, women being in those hiring manager positions, women being in those executive positions, will start to alter what this graph looks like. So we're going to do another round of questions. So we're going to start with maybe Olivia. So this would be great. So how do you stand out amongst other emerging professionals as a grad student, as an intern? How do you view that?
I think one of the best professional pieces of advice that I've gotten was that it's good to just show up. There are a lot of people that will not go to the networking events or sign up for the mentorship programs or go to the sort of professional associations happy hour. And if you show up and people start recognizing your face and hearing your name, and you show up and you ask good questions and you follow up with people and you are knowledgeable about planning topics, you're going to make a good impression, and that really sticks with people, especially because planning is not this sort of huge amorphous profession. People do know each other. The networks within a city are tight-knit, and the more people that you can get in contact with and have just knowing who you are is incredibly useful. So I think just showing up in good form has been very useful to me.
Oh, very good. That's a really good answer. So, okay, maybe we'll stick with Olivia right now since she currently has an intern position. So how did you find your internship position? I know a lot of young professionals ask me where to go to find them, and that they do find it kind of hard to secure an internship position. So what is your experience with that?
So last year was my first year of my graduate program, I made it a goal to do as much networking as I could with sort of the constraints of my academic schedule. And my program has a mentorship program that they run for students. And I got connected with Brianne through that mentorship program, and I met with her once a month, and we went to different events together, and I got a tour of the office, and we got coffee, and sort of built this relationship that turned into a professional sort of connection as well, which was really, really amazing and helpful to me. And I have had other planning internships in the past, though, that I sort of got through the more basic, just cold application process. Submitted a lot of applications. I was definitely in the camp in the previous graph of people who have submitted 10 or more applications. So just applying and sticking with it, and not getting disheartened when you get rejection emails is a good way to start.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so good. That's such a good answer. So let's see. So then, is getting your foot in the door the same for planners in an urban setting as it is for regional or rural? So maybe I'll go to Janae for this, because she's worked in so many different communities in Georgia and elsewhere. So what do you think is really important for planners to get their foot in the door? And then is it the same from where you are, from place to place?
I have worked in a lot of different communities, but they've all been in major metropolitan areas. So I'm not sure I'm the best at speaking to different types of environments, but I will say this, that no matter whether you're in Florida or Georgia, Ohio, or Missouri, all of those states that I've worked in, it's been the same. You need to work harder than your peers and pay more attention to detail. That's what's going to get you noticed.
Very true. That's actually a great answer, because it really is about where your passion is for planning, and then how you can work that advantage, work from what you know from the places that you've been, to relate that to what city or what community you would like to work for, so it translates. And so maybe we can ask Brianne, so what are the top 3 skills, either hard or soft, that you think is vital to having as a new professional? What do you think are those things?
Sure. Well, good attitude, and that relates to kind of having a drive and having passion, and like what you said, Corinne, positivity. So a good attitude, and being willing to do a variety of work. So I think those are all related to attitude. Certainly just being able to work well with others, get along with other people, and understand, under that emotional intelligence piece. I think even for the youngest person, the newest professional, I think that those are a few of, just to reiterate kind of that previous slide, that I find as the top skills.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And then maybe you can touch on a little bit here, and then we can go to Janae as well. So how have you negotiated the salary part in your career? So what has helped you make those adjustments, or make that conversation happen?
I'm glad you asked me, and I'm sure Janae is excited to answer that too, potentially. But I have given a session on negotiating your salary at the conference. So I've done a lot of research on this topic, and I, of course, had a lot of personal experience on it as well. And the first thing I did was educate myself. I never used to negotiate my salary, especially as a public sector, they post the salary range, and so you just take the lowest in the range or whatever they offer you. Like, that's pretty standard, I think. But as I have moved and grown in my career, I've realized that you have to negotiate. So that would be my first sort of step, is realizing you have to do it. You need to do it. 2, doing my research. So looking at the salary survey. I'm obsessed with the salary survey that APA puts out, because literally you can put in your information and it'll spit out a number that you're supposed to earn based on your years of experience and your region, and or where you, if you're in the rural or urban areas, and what state you're in, and all this. So it's like a formula, but also asking my friends what they made. Okay, so that takes guts. I'm gonna just say it. And I asked several people what they earned, several of my peers, so that I could benchmark myself. And they said, I'll tell you if you tell me. So that was super awkward. I'm not going to lie. I mean, these are my very close friends. And so I felt like if I couldn't ask them, who could I ask? And if we're not in it together as women, but then the men too, you have to ask the men in order to benchmark against that. So that was probably the single most important thing, was finding out what people in my age group and in my experience level were earning, and both men and women, and benchmarking from there.
That's very, very true. And Janae, have you had a similar experience through your career?
Well, I would say you have to know your worth, and you can figure out what your worth is on the open market through that APA salary survey, or if you're brave enough, asking other people. But I think what's really important is you have to know your worth, and you have to be confident in it. And you have to be willing to walk away if they can't pay you enough.
That's very true. That, happens in some stories that I've heard where they accepted the offer, and then a few months later, maybe 6 months in, feeling as though, it wasn't the appropriate salary for the work that's being done. And so that could have, a negative effect, and, really kind of damper where you are in your career from 10, 20 years on. So where you start is very important, and how you negotiate is very important for your end amount that you'll be making as a professional. So everything affects everything else. That's very true, Janae. So
probably isn't the only thing you can negotiate. You can negotiate vacation time, work hours, a lot of different things.
That is a great point. That's excellent. So we're going to talk about, so you had the job offer, you negotiated your salary, everything is looking good. So you have your job. So now what happens? So what are you going to do when you enter that workforce? So you're going to have a first impression. So you're going to have a first day on the job where you are going to have to start to impress people. So they're already impressed by your resume, by your interviews. They want you, and you're there. You're in the workplace. So here are just some elements that were found over in Leadership Insiders Network, so over on Fortune.com's website. So here are some things that they've gathered among new professionals for first impressions that really leave a mark. Of course, we talked about positivity and optimism, so projecting happiness. So just giving that sense that you're excited to be there, that you're excited for your opportunity. We talk about how women or girls have to smile. That's not true. So you can show that through attitude. You can show that through your willingness to do things. Doesn't always mean you need to have a happy smile on your face. That's not part of it. You want to demonstrate your confidence. So you're building your confidence. You're starting in your new position. You want to demonstrate that you know what you've come to the organization with, and that you want to be engaged and you want to be confident about that. Of course, what Janae mentioned, you want to show interest in your coworkers. That makes for such a better day at work, I tell you that. So having a great team, having great coworkers, showing your appreciation, making that conversation with them, getting to know people. Of course, dressing nicely. I think this is unsaid, but apparently it doesn't need to be unsaid.
It's not unsaid.
That's part of it too. You want to look professional. You want to look like you belong in the environment. You can get a sense of the environment. I know some people who dress like they're going camping, but that's like where they work. It's part of the whole culture. And I love that. Or people have to wear suits, or, it's just looked at in a better way if you're kind of dressed for the culture that you work in. Showing up early. So of course, being prompt should also be something that's a given. However, it shows a lot of maturity as a first impression. It's also it's essential. So we'll talk just a little bit about AICP. So Brianne and Janae and myself, we all have the AICP designation. We all took it pretty close to after graduation. We felt that was very important for our career. It's shown here in this salary survey by APA that those that have the AICP, they'll earn about $16,000 more than non-AICP members. And so that's something that you may want to consider as a new professional, or even if you're mid-profession right now, wanting to take that exam. So it does have benefits on the end. So now we're going to switch to Olivia. She's going to be asking the questions and going through. And so she can ask any three of us. So she can take it away here.
Sure. So the first question that I wanted to ask you guys was, how do you ensure a great first impression at a new job? Corinne, do you have any insight on that?
Very good. So of course I'll echo all of the things that were on the slide previous. So you want to make sure that you are, excited to be there. You always want to make sure that you are leaving an impression that shows that you were there and you're chosen for a reason, that you're able to do a variety of things with a great attitude. You also want to let them know that you're there for the long run. So you want to talk about what they have in their 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 20-year plan, what's in their strategic plan. You want to be invested in what they're doing so that they know that you're committed. And I think that leaves a great first impression.
Definitely. Then the next question I wanted to ask Janae, which is, has saying yes to new opportunities made you a better planner? And also, how has saying yes made you a better planner if it has?
I think as a planner, it's very important to be well-rounded. If you work in, say, transportation planning, you need to try to expose yourself to land use planning as well. I think it's a mistake to get too pigeonholed into one area. So is there something that's outside of your comfort zone, something that you don't know very much about in planning? Pursue learning about those things. That's only going to make you stronger in your core focus area.
Definitely. Definitely, that's really good advice. Brianne, the sort of next question here is about the AICP exam, and what is your opinion on sort of when would be a good time to take the AICP exam? Keeping in mind that there is a new pilot program that's allowing graduate students to take it 6 months after graduation, which is fantastic. And then sort of after that exam has been taken, how has that helped you in your career?
So take it as soon as you can. So with the new awesome AICP candidate program, if you're eligible for that, if you're a student, and I believe you still have to be at an accredited program, check the exact criteria, but take it as soon as you can after you graduate, because a lot of it is about law and history and ethics that you can learn through school. There is a large portion of the test that's scenario-based planning. And so we'll see how approval or how pass rates are affected by this, if they are. But take it as soon as you can, I would say, and leverage it. So once you get it, have a meeting with your manager and say, I'm AICP certified now. What does that mean for me? And if they don't know the answer, you can tell them what you think it means for you. At WSB, all of our certified and PE people who pass the engineering version, our CEO takes them to dinner at a steakhouse. And so we're really saying, like, this is an important part of your career. And then you get access to talk to the CEO too for a couple of hours, which is actually the most important part of that, rather than the steak. And so, yeah, it's up to you how you're gonna make it help you in your career. And it's just one of those things, you gotta check the box, you gotta do it. In my opinion, it maintains the value of the credential by having people who are pursuing it in fervor. So,
and the steak is always good too.
Yeah.
And then Janae, I wanted to ask you, how important is professional maturity and emotional intelligence in your work, and sort of what do those terms mean to you, and how have they helped you?
Wow, professional maturity. I think when you're coming in and you're one of the younger people in the office, it's important to know what you don't know. Be aware of those areas where you're not as strong and actively work on those areas. It's great when younger employees bring fresh ideas to the team, but it can be very difficult to deal with that employee when they insist that their fresh idea is more important than your 20 plus years of experience. So I think that knowing what you don't know, knowing that you have areas where you need to work on things or areas where you don't have a lot of experience, be cognizant of that and show the respect to those that have more experience, because those people may end up mentoring you and helping you through your career, not just on that one particular topic or project. Now, with regard to emotional intelligence, that can help you in every area of your life and at work in every possible way. One way I see it demonstrated a lot is we deal with the public, and anybody who deals with zoning knows that people get quite upset over new development proposals sometimes. And learning how to deal with those people and how to present your idea or recommendations as the right course of action requires you being able to understand the people you're working with, what their concerns are, what their fears are, why they're saying what they're saying, why they're acting the way they're acting, and how to deal with them. It takes a long time to learn all that stuff, but it's well worth the investment.
That's a very good point, Janae. That's essential. And we're actually going to skip over this since we talked about characteristics. But we're going to go into sort of our last area where we talk about mentorship and advancing your career. So as you are, excuse me, a new professional, or if you are, excuse me, or if you're mid or seasoned, this is something that's really important for all aspects. So wherever you are in your career, this is going to be something that's going to be very beneficial to you. So we see that we have 25% of the mentees and 20% of mentors, they receive a raise. So both at 20% more likely to get a raise than those who don't participate. This shows your company, your organization, that you value either being a mentor or a mentee, that you're invested in either channeling what you have in your experience, but also willingness to learn as a mentee. So these are all very important factors. Mentors were 6 times more likely to have been promoted to a bigger job. And then nearly 1 out of every 5 women in the US does not have a mentor. So, oh, great. So we really need to make sure that we are reaching out. And maybe, you know what, maybe it's not official. Maybe it's someone that you just check in with now and then about decisions that you're going to make in your career. Maybe it's someone that you're just going to have lunch with, coffee with, and just check in to see what your goals are. What are your big ideas? And maybe that person can help you. Maybe they can connect you with someone else who is on the same road or doing similar work.
Do you want to do the poll?
Oh yeah, let's do a poll. So we'll do it after this. So we're going to do a poll also in a second. So also the benefits of mentorship. So having a mentor is especially meaningful to women. It fosters that leadership. You are exchanging experience, knowledge, power. So we talk about women having positions of power, small as it may be at the moment, they will grow. And so transferring that power to those who are coming through the door behind you. And then also making sure that that mentorship is a partnership. That's something that will be long lasting. So we're going to do a little poll here. So we're going to ask you, everyone who's on the line, if you have a mentor. So just a yes or no question so we can kind of gauge if maybe we will be that 1 in 5 statistic. We'll see. So we're going to pose that now for you. And
it's going now.
All right, wonderful. Okay, wonderful. So we'll give a little bit of time here and then we'll close it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close now and then share those results.
All right. Okay, so it looks like we have some work to do with the folks that don't have a mentor. Call any one of us if you want a mentor, or if you want to mentor us. Let us know.
Our goal for 2018 as a division is to set up a formal mentorship program, at least for 2018, and then iterate, see how it goes. So I'm not going to commit to it, but yeah, the Women in Planning Division's mentorship program hopefully will be rolled out this year. So stay tuned.
Yes, wonderful. Excellent. So that, I mean, that's really good news that we have some people that are in mentorships currently. We have those that are mentors, which is wonderful. And that, here we go. And that we have those that have the opportunity to have a mentor or be a mentee. APA at the national conference, they always have this opportunity available to you if you're going to the national conference. If you'd like to, I think I had 2 last year, which was amazing. So just speaking with students as they're entering the career, and even myself as a mid-season professional, mid-career, just checking in with those that have been mentors in the past and continuing that conversation. You know, as I did work in Georgia as a planner, and Janae was my mentor. How exciting. So reached out through our contacts with the university, and she was able to give me some experience before I got a full-time job, and that was priceless. That just made it all worth it. Okay, so we're gonna have Olivia answer or ask more questions of us.
As I have been a mentor, or a mentee rather than a mentor, I want to ask you guys your opinions on these questions on mentorship. Brianne, sort of first off, who has influenced you the most in your planning career as you've been going forward?
Well, I would say my managers. So in particular, Pat Trudgeon from, he's in Roseville now, but he was a huge influence, positive influence. And then my current boss, Jay Kennedy, both of them have influenced my career the most. However, I also, in a close second, I know that's 2, but in a close second are my peers. I have been amazed at how much mentorship I have gotten from my peers, people my same cohort, or, oh my goodness, or, you know, my same age. I would think a mentor would need to be older and wiser and have more experience. But I think in a very close second, my peers have been really influential.
Definitely. And I'm definitely seeing that now with my grad school cohort, and how even on this, in its very early stage, we're all trying to support each other and bring each other up and share experiences, which has been amazing. Janae, I wanted to ask you this next question, which is how do you weigh different career growth opportunities? How have you decided what moves to make in your career?
Well, I think you have to balance a couple different things. You have to balance what interests you, digging deeper into that topic, that type of planning, with the job where you can see the next step after it, where you can see the path. Because sometimes they're not the same thing. You may want to dig more into a particular topic, but you can't see where you would advance from that job. There may be another job where you can see, oh, there's a clear path. So you have to balance the two. Ideally, you want the job that's one and the same.
That makes sense, definitely. Corinne, have you had a mentor throughout your career? Maybe multiple mentors? And how has this helped you? I know you mentioned some sort of mentorship relationships earlier.
Yeah, so it's been really great throughout my planning career to have been a mentee and then to have been a mentor. I think being on both sides of that is very important as you get into your career. You don't know what others need to hear until you ask. You don't know what others, are thinking about in their careers until you have that conversation with them. Very early on, as a graduate research assistant at Ohio State, the professor I worked for, Jennifer Evans Cowley, she was an amazing mentor in the way it wasn't an official mentorship. It was, set up through a program, but it was someone that I always considered someone I aspired to be. I always knew that I wasn't working as hard as Jennifer was working, so I better, step up my game. She, as a planner, as a professional, and as a well, now she's down in Texas as a vice president of Texas, or University of Texas, just really, or North Texas, excuse me. She has really been influential in how I view planning, how excited I was to be a part of the profession, and through that I wanted to give back when I've been given the opportunity as well. And so, as I mentioned at the last national conference, I was a mentor to 2 different students. And then also through the Ohio State planning program, I've been a mentor kind of remotely as well. So it's always advantageous, whether you're on either side of that coin, to be able to have that in your career.
And I think this next question we sort of touched on, so I want to skip to the last question here, which is how do you see the planning profession in 10 years in terms of the advancement of women here? And I wanted to ask that to you, Brianne, because you've talked a little bit about it before today. But given sort of the numbers that we've seen in those graphs, what do you see the change being, if any?
So one thing I hear a lot when we talk about the salary gap or the lack of women leaders in planning or in corporate, it's, oh, well, it's only a matter of time, because 30 years ago, 20 years ago, there weren't that many women getting planning degrees, and that was true. But 15 years ago there were, and 10 years ago there were. I know because I was actually lived it, and that's weird to think. But and there has been very little progress in women in post 10-year planning positions, women in leadership in planning, and salary gap, very little change in 10 years. And so if it's only a matter of time until that happens, how much time? A couple hundred years? And what are we willing to accept? And this is true for FAICP, which is the fellows of the AICP. The 20% of people in that program are women, and 32% of the class last year were women. But it's going to take us 40 years to reach 30% if that continues. So I think it looks exactly the same as it does today, because 10 years ago it looked pretty much the same, unless, right, the Lorax, unless someone like you cares a whole lot. I love the very last page of that book, unless, because it doesn't have to be that way, and we can band together and bring to light some of these statistics and have a second feminist movement or whatever it takes to advance this discussion. So
that's excellent. Thank you, Brianne, for that. That really concludes our part of this webinar. We're going to be taking questions, but I do want to just give some of these links to connect with us with the Women in Planning Division. Please consider being a part of our membership, whether it's $25 part of your APA registration, or also for students, you get up to 5 free divisions. How exciting. So go on now and participate with us. We have a book club. We have many chapter engagement opportunities. With the mentorship program Brianne talked about. Also, our goal is to have a Women in Planning either committee or commission at each state chapter, so that we have that reach to all of our state chapters with Women in Planning. If you're going to the national conference, join us for our business meeting. Join us for our reception, which is always amazing, by the way. And I think we're going to be on a boat in the bayou. So guess what? That's exciting.
We're making a lot of promises, Corinne.
We are.
Fiona, if you're on, you can just keep us in line. But
that's right. Well, we're So, I mean, needless to say, we have a great time. We support one another, and it's worth our while, which is the main point of anything that you want to do in life, is that it's worth your time. Your worth, it would be important to us. So please come join us. And so now we're going to take some questions. We're going to have Christine facilitate those. Thank you.
Okay, great. There are a ton of questions. So I've been trying to just kind of filter through. So if your question isn't answered, perhaps you might want to just connect with one of the speakers directly, particularly if you're interested in being a mentor or a mentee. There were a lot of those questions. Okay, so I need everyone to go back to towards the very beginning of the presentation. On the salary and promotion statistics, is this only for public sector planners, or does it also include private sector planners like consultants?
The planner one, the women in planning salary one?
I assume so.
It includes all planners.
Okay.
So the APA does a planning salary survey every 2 years. So the members, I believe that's the one. The members are so it's only members of APA. I should say that. And they started in 2004 collecting salary survey data every 2 years. So 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And it's only APA members that get the link, and I believe you have to log in with your number, so you can only respond if you're a member of APA. But the last, like 2012, I think they had 12,000 responses, and in this last one they had 9,000 responses. So either there's fewer planners, which I think there actually are fewer planners overall, but also potentially you have to select yourself in. I mean, it's not statistically where they're going to harass you until you answer. It's an opt-in thing. But yeah, 95 or something, 100 planners responded. So I think the N is big enough to be able to draw some good statistics from that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next question, kind of going along with that. In your opinion, to what do we attribute the drop in women in planning after the 15 plus years of experience?
Well, and I'll start with that one, and Janae and Corinne, if you want to jump in. But I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out by cross-referencing all the information. And the salary survey does not do polls about like any qualitative information at all. I have some guesses being a 13-year planner. And I think, can they hear me though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get to the last page.
I think that's also peak childbearing years. So I'll just say that. I think that's where people start to see actually start to see the discrepancies in men and women, and so they may get frustrated by that. I looked at if it was just a cohort thing where. Okay, good, Janae.
Well, what I was thinking is, I started out in planning a long time ago, okay, in the early 90s, and there weren't many women in planning. And those women with more experience, they're me. Those are me. That's me. I'm in that group. And it's just in that age group and that level of experience group, there were just fewer women going into planning. I think it's just that simple. I don't think we've left. I think there were just fewer of us to start.
I will say that trend has not changed in 10 years, though. So while there are more women, the man to woman ratio hasn't changed in 10 years.
Interesting.
For those experienced planners, for those 10 to 15 year and 15 to 20 year, like the young the 0 to 5, they're 50-50 men and women. And so, yeah, hopefully that cohort will continue to populate.
Okay. We have actually had quite a few questions wanting to know what percentage of the folks on the line today are male versus female, which I think can say a lot. So I've actually just created a quick poll so we can gauge. So I'm going to go ahead and run it real quick, if that's
Great.
okay with everyone.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I'm going to launch that. So go ahead and we'll take just another second here. Huh, interesting. I don't know why it's interesting, but it is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it and then share it. I think it's more interesting from statistically to actually get 25 and 75, like those specific numbers. We normally don't see that, so.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Wonderful.
Yeah, so going along with that, there are a couple folks actually asked what you would like to say to the male planners that are in the audience.
Very true. Go ahead.
Thank you for caring and joining the conversation and being willing to learn more. And I know there are a couple of extremely awesome men that I work with that are very interested in this issue. There are always a few that come to our sessions as hiring managers. And so first off, thank you for participating. One of the things that I personally feel passionate about is that men need to be involved in these discussions because they're frankly the decision makers and the hiring managers in a lot of cases. And so those who are paying attention to the issue and there to support that career growth is really great.
Someone just typed in, it was a male, saying, so does this mean that we can join your boat event on the bayou? That's funny.
Yeah, remember.
That was funny.
Remember, I will say, drink tickets definitely help increase the male participation in our Women in Planning events. So, yes, if you are a member, you are welcome.
Great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please join us on our boat in the bayou.
Okay. Next question. How much do you as the panelists think family planning affects the ability of females to reach senior positions?
Well, maybe here, I'll start with that one. So really, family planning. So I just come from the perspective that if you prioritize whatever you have in life, whatever those top 3-4 things that you are most important to you in life, you can make all of those work. It doesn't matter. You don't have to put one before the other. I have a 2.5-year-old son, and I continue to want to thrive in my planning career just as much as I want to be a mother to my son. So it's very important for you, whatever those 3-4 things may be, they can alternate as time goes on. Maybe when obviously when I didn't have a child, my career was, my family and career were, first, and then, having a child came later for me, which was just how I wanted that to happen in my career. But as now that I'm a mother and Brianne has 2 small children as well, it's really just balancing that focus, and it can be done, and having those people to help you and reach out to those that can, come to your need when you need it are very important too. So having that network of other planners, male and female, to balance that.
And I'll just add support system at home too, whether that's family or a really well-paid nanny or babysitter or your husband. And I would say at least anecdotally, I see the women who are successful and I look at their husbands, and their husbands are very involved, 50-50. Husband or partners. It's broader than just males. And so that is a critical, again, anecdotally, and I think Mackenzie has done some research on it, that is a critical factor for women's success. Again, is those men at home or partners at home.
And one thing that I wanted to touch on from earlier in the slideshow was on the slide about young women and their views and aspirations to move up in their careers. There was a point that said that while young women are more likely to aspire to be top executive, they're still less interested in becoming top executives. And I think that that statement sort of puts the onus on the young women rather than on the workplace. And maybe part of the issue is that young women are looking at the benefits packages offered to employees at their companies and realizing that that just doesn't do it for them, or it doesn't lend itself to the kind of life that they want to have, or the flexibility, or sort of just benefits that they're looking for. And so maybe the problem is not as much with a lack of interest or aspiration, but a lack of interest, or the problem is with the workplaces not moving forward and offering competitive benefits fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's very
a very important consideration. I've worked several places where they actively sought out employees who did not have children because they couldn't offer the balance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very true. And that's something that we as women, as the Women in Planning Division also, as one of our really important kind of policy efforts going forward. How do we get women to speak up in the workplace, to be a part of those teams that are transitioning what HR looks like, what hiring practices look like, what your benefits look like, to make those suggestions. In my own experience, I asked for a different type of maternity leave. I wanted intermittent leave. We were adopting our son, and I thought, well, I'd like to have 4 months, but I'll come back 1 week out of each month until my FMLA runs out, and that was agreeable since I was the only planner on staff. So it was a win-win. They needed me, and I wanted to be on leave a little bit longer. So that was something they hadn't considered before until it was mentioned. So just having the ability to go and make those requests, I think actually go a lot further than you think they will.
Okay, great. And I'll put in my 2 cents that I'm literally holding my 7-week-old right now as we're doing this webcast. So I understand the whole concept of work-life balance as someone in a type of planning leadership role. And I have to tell you that my sitter fell through due to sickness this morning, and so I had that panic moment, thinking about a screaming 7-week-old while I'm trying to host this webcast for your division. And then I thought, well, look at what division it is that I'm hosting. It couldn't have been a better division to have this situation come up than the Women in Planning division. So anyway, so next question. This is interesting. How do you suggest working with other women who are competitive and not particularly interested in helping other women?
That is such a good question. So I'll start with that. That is something, so let's, professional maturity is totally part of that, because I'm a very competitive person. Sometimes you know that, sometimes you don't. It just depends on kind of maybe what the topic is. And I think trying to get those folks, I don't know why they wouldn't want to be part of a team. I don't understand that part, because we all do better when we all do better. So I don't understand that. However, there are those people out there who don't consider that fact. And so I think trying to find ways to make that person your ally, making opportunities for teamwork to be showcased so that you all are working on the same thing for the same purpose, the same goal, maybe will soften that person. Of course, it's your work culture. So if that's your culture and that is not you, then that is a good indicator that maybe you need a little bit of an adjustment in kind of where you would like to fall. If it's just competitive by nature, I don't know. But in the public sector, I found that a lot of the planners I've worked with are very teamwork friendly. They want to get the work done together. There's really no prize for one planner, so you can tell them that. Like, no one planner is going to win the one prize for like the plan that you're going to do for a community. So there's that. But maybe Brian can step into.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Private sector is competitive. There's competition. and people who generally like competition are maybe more attracted to it. And so I try to take a page out of the book of the men in the office. They can compete heavily against each other and not hold it against each other. We can't be undermining. You can compete with someone without undermining them and without destroying, bad mouthing them or whatever. So it depends on what we mean by compete too. But the other thing, and this comes to emotional maturity or professional maturity, is just kind of like letting that stuff just roll off your back. Like, we can get so mired in office politics and in who is wronging who and who's talking about who behind their back, and we just have to rise above that. And even if we are hurt by it and we are wronged by it, it's like we just have to forgive and move on, because otherwise it will destroy you in the process. And so I have had challenges with this, and I feel like just rising above it and just kind of thinking about the big picture and not letting any of that negativity get me down has actually worked in the last couple of years. So it's just a piece of advice from my experience.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. There have been a couple questions regarding you're being kind of stuck in the middle of your career. You're not quite at the top. You're not at the beginning. There was one person asked, I'm too old to be a mentee, but kind of maybe too young to be a mentor. There's actually a couple questions about that one, where they're just kind of stuck in the middle, in limbo. Could we speak a little bit to that?
I would say don't be in such a hurry to get to the top, because once you're the manager, you do a lot less planning work. You spend a lot of time with budget and job descriptions and personnel issues, and you don't get to do the fun and interesting work that you want to do. So don't be afraid to be a senior planner for a long time. You don't need the title director to really enjoy your career, and honestly, you don't need it to make a lot more money either. You move up, you get more headaches. You can continue to work in your current role doing interesting planning work and shine in that role without having to go up the food chain and think about ways to fire people.
Really good, Janae. I think we should end on that. That is so true. That is so Brandon and I we're mids, right? Mm-hmm. And Olivia is starting out. And so I think that is a great balance, because, it's really interesting. And it goes back to, you have to love the work you're doing too. So if that fits for you and you want to be that top position, then you for sure should go in that direction. If you are in the middle for a while, that happens too. And when either you get to that next step, enjoy it. Yeah.
Shine in your current role. Take on new and different responsibilities. Branch out, but don't be in such a hurry to write job descriptions and fight over budgets and have to deal with personnel issues.
Yes, very true. There's a lot of extras that come with that as well. Right. Yeah. So be confident and comfortable where you are, and equally passionate. Okay, Christine, I think we're expired now.
Yeah, I think we gotta go. It's time. I just want to invite you all to come back again in 2018. There are so many questions, really good questions, that we didn't even get a chance to talk about. So obviously, y'all need to come back again. So thank you for joining us today, and for the Women in Planning Division for hosting this session. And we have a copy of this presentation as a PDF, and it's on our webcast webpage now, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. And we are recording it, and I'm going to get it posted up onto our YouTube channel shortly. Just search Planning Webcast. So that's it, everyone. Have a great rest of the year. We'll see you in 2018 for another great lineup of webcasts. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.